Addressing the uproar towards harm reduction vending machines with evidence-based insights. Harm reduction vending machines are a polarizing topic, often criticized as enabling risky behaviors. When a news article announced that a local community has a harm reduction vending machine now available, it sparked uproar in the comments section. This becomes an opportunity to break the stigma as it hits closer to home. In this episode, we dive into the debate, separating myths from facts with evidence-based statistics. Join us as we explore how these machines are saving lives, reducing overdoses, and fostering healthy communities. We'll address common criticisms, highlight the science behind harm reduction strategies, and discuss their real-world impact on public health.
This is Talking Addiction and Recovery, the podcast talking, you guessed it, all about addiction and recovery. Join your host, licensed professional counselor Andrew J. Schreier, as he and his guests break down recovery topics with raw honesty, delving into niche conversations around the topics of substance abuse, mental health, and gambling. We intend to meet individuals where they are on their own personal journey of recovery, with dignity, respect, and compassion. We'll do more than talk addiction and recovery. We'll explore it. We're glad you've joined us. Here with today's episode, your host, Andrew Schreier.
Before we dive into this episode, I want to take a moment to shout out the newly developed website, which is andrewschreier.com. And I've had a website for a while and recently went through an entire rebranding, which included a new website. And the reason for bringing it up here is that not only does it reference where I do counseling, speaking engagements, and finding resources, but it has a page dedicated to the podcast. You can learn more about the podcast, find episodes, information about being a guest, or even interest in becoming a sponsor. So when you get a moment, make sure to check out the website at www.andrewjschreier.com. I was on social media, Facebook, and scrolling through for a bit and came across a post from a coworker and friend that was talking about a news article that had the headline, South Milwaukee Harm Reduction Vending Machine Now Available to Public. Now, one of our clinics where I work is located in South Milwaukee, and in fact, it's where I started when I joined Community Medical Services as a clinical supervisor, and even in my role now as the clinical director, I still call it my home clinic. So when I saw this, it was really great to see, because this has been years in the making to get a harm reduction vending machine in the South Milwaukee area. However, when I fully read what my coworker and friend posted about the article, was, really all the hateful and negative comments that people had about it. And yeah, that's where we're going to go right to, is, what was really all the uproar about this now being made available. And the article was titled South Milwaukee Harm Reduction Vending Machine Now Available to Public. And I'll post the direct link to the article in the podcast notes so that people can go see it. But for like a really simple, brief breakdown, a couple of main points was, South Milwaukee unveiled its vending machine on Monday, January 6th. The vending machine offers items such as Narcan and fentanyl test strips at no cost. A news release says the vending machine is intended to provide, convenience and for people to be able to access it anonymously. So sounds great, for me, doing this work and knowing what that can provide, happy, excited, it's finally here. But social media did not have the same enthusiasm as I did. So I do want to go to just some of the comments and respond to a few, but not all, because I think some of them are just going to highlight some of the main points. And then we're going to just talk a little bit more about vending machines and like what they can really do and the evidence behind them with some statistics. One comment, right out the gate that I saw was a majority of the junkies across the city are looking for the laced drugs. A person who just wants to get high doesn't use these harm reduction options. Well, first of all, let's call out the stigmatizing language with using the word junkies. A person who just wants to get high doesn't use these harm reduction options. I mean, that's exactly the people who use harm reduction options and strategies are people who are using substances. People who are not using, they may get them to be available or to help those who are using, but it's exactly who it's designed for. It's designed for people who are using to reduce harm. One comment just made mention of, quote, the encouragement machines. And I'm going to respond with, if it's encouraging safer practices, overdose prevention, support, resources, then yes, these machines definitely encourage that. This was, quote, what a massive waste of taxpayer dollars. Let's enable drug addicts to be drug addicts. Always look at that naloxone doesn't enable drug use, but it does help prevent funerals. And funerals are very costly. It's something that I have never enjoyed having a conversation with about a family or a loved one who is having to discuss planning a funeral for a loved one who passed because of an overdose that could have been preventable. And we'll talk more about the costs associated with it, because that's always part of the uproar is the taxpayer dollars. Here's a quote. It's not about any type of help. It's about, if you make stupid decisions, you deserve the outcome. We shouldn't be responsible for making you stay alive. Quote. Now, it's interesting because, people don't make the best decisions in a lot of areas, like, even when it's something like when it comes to driving, people don't make the best decisions, but we still make every effort to keep someone alive if they're in a car accident. People may not make the best decisions when it comes to what they eat, and we still make every effort to keep them alive if they are having a heart attack, and it might be because of their eating. So we still look at trying to keep them alive. You may not make the best decisions in several different ways, and yet we don't look at those and say, well, we aren't responsible to make sure you're alive. But some people are more comfortable saying that when it comes to someone who uses or struggles with substances. Another comment was, quote, this is not help. Even if they OD and get Narcan, they will do it again. Well, it is help. If someone can't breathe on their own, which is what's happening when someone's overdosing, that is exactly what this can do, is help reverse the overdose. And that is exactly what helping is. And I love this quote that I saw from someone that said, some of the best people I know are alive today because someone had Narcan when it mattered most. So just like, you might say if you provide naloxone and you reverse an overdose, there's no guarantee they're going to stop. There's also no guarantee someone's going to use again. There's a lot of people in my line of work, and not just people that I've counseled, people that I work with, colleagues, people I've had on the podcast, who've mentioned that they have been those who've had an overdose reversed, and they've had it happen, but they have also stopped using. So that is possible, instead of just assuming that it's just going to happen again. Ooh, I like this next one. This is a quote. Why not offer an EpiPen or insulin for free? But no one wants to have that conversation. Keep giving the drug addict a slap on the fucking wrist. I'm going to say that. Not have to mark this episode as explicit. Thank you, commenter. So 2 parts of this I want to address. One is the slap on the wrist comment. I'm not sure where providing healthcare services is equivalent to a punishment. Like when someone's saved by a defibrillator or someone receives first aid, we don't look at providing those services as like a slap on the wrist. Usually it's given an applause or a helping hand, but not a punishment for providing that service. And the other one, which I love to talk about, is as someone with type 1 diabetes, I've had it since I was 12. I have no issues with this regarding free access to these supplies and services. I'm not sure why the two are at odds, because I hear this a lot when it comes down to the free resources that we try to make available for people with substance use. And it gets brought back to diabetes as to, or EpiPens or medication as to why all of those are not free. So I'm not sure why they're looked at as being at odds. Like in my mind, when someone makes this reference, like there's a room of people who are like, hey, do we put the naloxone in there? Do we put the free insulin in there? Like, I don't think that's happening. And to be clear, there are a lot of us who are having the conversations around the price of insulin and other medications. So it doesn't mean those conversations are not happening. I think there is space for conversations to reduce costs and increase access for EpiPens, insulin, and harm reduction supplies, if you ask me, but it doesn't mean they have to be at odds with one another or that they have to happen in the same exact space. But they are happening. And I don't think there is we can do it for this, but not this, or this and not that. Like they're medications, but they are different when it comes to, who's providing it, why we're providing it, able to, unable to, I don't think it's as simple as I got a vending machine, what do we want to put in it? So as someone who has it, as someone who has paid a ridiculous amount for insulin for all these years, I do not have any problem with making sure we have these services and resources for free for those who are using substances. So I didn't want to spend the whole time just going through comments after comments. A lot of them begin to echo the same, referring to people in stigmatizing language, talking about how much money this is going to cost, how it's really not going to help, how it doesn't do anything, that it's taking up resources from other things. So instead of just going down that hole of comments and figuring out ways to respond, like let's talk about harm reduction vending machines and some things to really consider with it. So when we look at it is, number one, the life-saving impact of naloxone access. And vending machines provide 24/7 access to naloxone, which reverses opioid overdoses and has been proven to save lives. There was a study in the Lancet Public Health back in 2019 that found that areas with high naloxone distribution had a 14% reduction in opioid-related deaths to areas without. And it's really important to highlight that many overdoses occur during non-business hours when traditional services are unavailable. So that means when you just can't walk into a place and get it or ask for it. Even places like us that distribute it, we don't have it 24/7 hours open to do it. This is where a vending machine provides access to hours when it's usually not available, which is really, really key. Number two, reduced disease transmission, and providing clean syringes via vending machines reduces the spread of bloodborne diseases like HIV and hepatitis C. The CDC reports that syringe service programs, they're also known as SSPs, lower HIV transmission by rates of up to 50%. In Vancouver, there was a clean syringe program to help reduce new HIV cases by over 35% within 5 years. Now, this is really important because harm reduction initiatives saves money by preventing the long-term healthcare costs of treating chronic illnesses like hepatitis C, which, if you did not know, can average $84,000 per treatment course. So the cost of providing a new syringe through harm reduction programs is significantly lower than the cost of treating bloodborne diseases like HIV and hepatitis C. When you look at it, like the cost of a syringe, if you look at like bulk packaging through like syringe exchange programs, can be, anywhere from like 10 cents to 15 cents. When you look at like distribution, staffing, operating, some of the costs for like a harm reduction program providing syringes is like $1 to $3 per syringe. Well, when you look at the cost of treating bloodborne diseases and like you look at like HIV treatment costs, a lifetime cost treating a single person with HIV can cost an average of $420,000 over their lifetime. Hepatitis C treatment with an antiviral medication costs around $84,000 for a full 12-week course. If left untreated, hepatitis C can lead to complications like liver failure or cancer, increasing healthcare costs to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when you look at it, investing in syringe exchange programs and harm reduction vending machines is incredibly cost effective. For every dollar spent on clean syringes, communities save $7 in HIV-related healthcare costs, and that comes from the Journal of the American Medical Association. These programs not only save lives, but also reduce the financial burden on healthcare systems, which is interesting because one of the biggest uproars is how much this is costing. But I do want to encourage people that this is looking at more of investing, that yes, there is some cost up front, and there may be costs to continue with supporting it, but without it, you are looking at staggering costs down the road. And those numbers are much harder to take care of than the ones earlier on to invest and spend money and get these things going. Number 3, connection to resources and treatment. I think people forget that harm reduction vending machines are also a gateway to additional services. Many vending machines also provide educational materials, hotline numbers, and access to addiction treatment. There was research in addiction in 2018 shows that individuals using harm reduction programs are 5 times more likely to enter treatment for substance use disorder. Now, really interesting, right? Because one of the comments before was that they're not going to use these resources, they're not going to stop, or they're not going to want to get help when people are more likely to enter treatment who are engaging in these services. So it's not just like a standalone, here is this and that's that, and now that's what the only person wants to use, or maybe they're not at that point where they want to reach it, but it's always available. It's a continuum of care, in a sense, to keep making this information. Someone might go to it 3 or 4 times and not care at all about the pamphlet or the card that's got a number for help or treatment, but that time they keep coming back, it could be the 5th time, and then that time they do want it. And so it's always available, even when at times when they're not ready. The moment they are, it's still available because it's there. It's not like they just have to, it doesn't have to be always at the right time, the right place. The right place is always going to be there for when that person is at that time where they want to reach out for help. Now, we did talk about reducing disease transmission, which also helped with reducing cost. And there's other cost effectiveness with it. Harm reduction vending machines are cost effective compared to emergency response and long-term health treatment. So when we look at even providing naloxone kits, roughly $150 per unit. One opioid-related emergency room visit costs $1,500 to $5,000. So even being able to reduce the costs of not just transmissions of diseases, but even reducing the cost of what these services might look like when they are in a hospital or a different setting. Preventive measures like this via vending machines reduce the burden on healthcare systems and save taxpayer dollars. Number 5, public safety and community benefits. So contrary to concerns, harm reduction vending machines improve public safety and cleanliness in communities. There was a study in a harm reduction journal back in 2020 that showed a 50% decline in improperly discarded syringes in neighborhoods with syringe vending machines. Programs in cities like Las Vegas, shout out to what I see as like my second home, have seen no increase in crime rates near vending machines. These vending machines reduce the stigma of accessing resources and providing alternative to unsafe public drug use. And I remember, so we talk about this one with South Milwaukee. We have a vending machine outside of our West Dallas location. And I remember when that was going to be out, people were saying how often that was going to be vandalized, broken into, how it was just going to be messed up. And ever since we've had it out there, that has not been the case. there has been none of that perceived, vandalism and things are going to be a mess. It's complete opposite since we've had that outside of our clinic. Number 6, enabling drug use. The whole topic of enabling is it's fascinating because, when it's a good thing, people like to use the word enable. When it's perceived as like a negative thing, people use the word enable. It's just enabling has become such a very thrown around word as we have raised awareness of issues related to substance use and other things. The term enabling comes up quite often, but evidence consistently shows that harm reduction programs do not encourage or increase drug use. There was in the International Journal of Drug Policy back in 2010, there was a meta-analysis done that found no evidence of increased drug use or initiation in communities with harm reduction programs. Studies actually indicate that harm reduction programs report decreased substance use over time due to increased access to treatment and counseling. So basically, if we know people are going to use, we provide them with resources, we provide them with referrals, we provide them with education, we provide them with ways to reduce harm, that increases the likelihood that someone is going to access the other additional services that we have. So harm reduction, as we've talked about before, focuses on meeting people where they are and reducing stigma and building trust to guide them toward recovery. Someone keeps coming back and the person continues on the side of harm reduction to meet them where they're at. Hey, what do you need? What can I help you with? Can I offer you this? May I recommend this? They say no. Okay. Doesn't mean, I can't ask again or I can't say it again. No, next time someone comes back, hey, what do you need? What can I help you with? Can I recommend this? Can I offer this? There's a lot of trust development. There's a lot of respect for autonomy. There's a lot of dignity and compassion. So you can understand, like, when someone feels that way from people who are providing some resources, when there's a moment where they then want to learn more about counseling or find out about treatment options, there has been such a significant trust built that allows for that better transition into treatment programs or counseling or physical health, whatever it may be. It's huge with that. So it doesn't surprise me when you see evidence behind that these programs increase chances of someone going to treatment, decreases substance use, decreases overdoses, does all the things that we want. So there's a couple of other things to talk about with harm reduction, vending machines, and even like harm reduction in of itself is, harm reduction works in real world settings. Las Vegas launched vending machines in 2017 and distributed over 100,000 clean syringes and 3,000 naloxone kits within 2 years. And the program was praised for reducing overdose deaths and disease transmission rates, which is lowering costs of healthcare and all that could happen with taxpayer money. It's important to address criticism with data. Critics argue that these programs, waste funds, but in reality, they save money. According to National Institute on Drug Abuse, every $1 invested in harm reduction yields $4 in health and societal savings. So we want to look at look at the data, look at the numbers, and that's where you kind of pull back from this. You kind of look at, is it the vending machines that people have an issue with? Well, no. Is it like, do people just not like vending machines? Doesn't matter. Could be vending machines for food or beverages or whatnot, but people are usually okay with vending machines. Okay, so is it an issue with medication being in there? Is it an issue with education being in there? Is it an issue with knowledge being in there? Is it an issue with resources being in there? For the most part, someone's going to say no. If we give medication for people, like some people would like for an EpiPen or insulin, if we had an EpiPen machine or a insulin vending machine, would people be upset about it? I'm sure there's someone that would be, but would we see people as upset or bothered as we see with the harm reduction vending machines? And probably not. What it comes down to is it's not the vending machines, it's not necessarily what's even in them, but it's who it's for. And these vending machines are designed for people who are using substances. And that's where we see that people have the problem with it, is for who it's for. And that's stigmatizing. That's damaging. There are a lot of programs like this trying to get up and running, trying to get going, and they meet a significant amount of community pushback. And it's not just vending machines. I just saw an article about a treatment program trying to open not too far from where I live. It's a couple freeway exits away from me, trying to open up a treatment program, and met with a lot of community pushback. I think overall was, we like this idea, but not where we live. And part of it comes down to how people view those who use substances. So we gotta peel back it's a vending machine issue, it's a medication issue, it's a knowledge issue, it's a resource issue, but what it really comes down to is it's stigmatizing towards people who use substances. So I want to encourage listeners to really learn more about, the harm reduction vending machines, and advocate for policies supporting evidence-based strategies in their communities. If you found out a vending machine for harm reduction is coming out in your neighborhood or an area you frequent a lot, maybe, where would your mind go? What would your response be? And avoid the reaction, avoid the quick, comment section, but take a moment, think about it, look through the data, the studies, the information, the evidence, and what would your response be? You could leave a comment about it. What comment would you have? These are vending machines that could do a lot of things. I mean, they could prevent overdoses, keep people alive. It could reduce disease transmission, reduce a lot of costs, provide connection to resources and treatment, provide a lot of benefit to the communities as far as safety, even cleanliness, overall support, treatment, support, reducing harm, support, reducing substance use. It's a lot of good things that can come out of a vending machine. So if you want to learn more too, I recommend, you can go to the Harm Reduction Coalition, which is harmreduction.org. You can look up the CDC guideline on syringe service programs. You can even look at SAMHSA's naloxone education distribution programs to learn more about the effectiveness of these programs and what that could all look like then if it's just offered in a vending machine. So thank you, South Milwaukee, for all of those who made this possible. Thank you to all the other efforts made by people across the country and even the world to make harm reduction vending machines more accessible and available to our communities. As a result, we can do a lot of great things through something that we normally associate with snacks and food and toiletries, although now you go to the airport and there's a lot of interesting things in vending machines. But overall, this can reduce overdoses, prevent and treat bloodborne diseases, reduce crime, significantly reduce costs, and connect people with resources. Does it cost money? Yes, there is. But as I say, there is investment in this. Because as that evidence shows, that will reduce the costs in the long run substantially. If it means saving dollars from cost of syringes, if that means saving costs from reversing an overdose and absolutely preventing the cost of a funeral, those are worth it. What we really need is overcoming stigma and giving that compassion, dignity, and respect to those whose lives could be significantly impacted by something like a vending machine. Thanks for listening, and hope you learned something.
You've been listening to Talking Addiction and Recovery with Andrew J. Schreier. We're so glad you've joined us and invite you to connect further with the show and these topics at www.andrewjschreier.com. That's AndrewJSchreier.com. You can also email us directly at talkingaddictionandrecovery@gmail.com and connect on social media, Instagram at Talking Addiction and Recovery, Facebook Talking Addiction and Recovery Podcast, and Twitter at TalkAR_podcast. To stay connected and never miss an episode, be sure to like, rate, and subscribe. Until next time, friends, let's keep talking addiction and recovery.